She's sweet, she's salty, she's smart and craves chocolate every day. Here is your host, the Greek goddess of comedy, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sweet and Salty with Ellen Karis. I am very excited because we finally have a guest, so you don't have to listen to my thoughts that rattle around in my head constantly. I'm very excited to have this wonderful, funny, talented, and I will say, even though I realize I am a married woman, very handsome, charming comedian, actor, podcast host, and quite the hustler. Okay, I think he's got 27 jobs, but comedy obviously being the main thing. And one of the main reasons, well, the main reason is I like him very much, but why I wanted to get him on today, as we're recording March 17th, 2023, St. Patrick's Day, but I'm Greek, so I don't really celebrate, is because he just, as we say, dropped his new comedy album called 40 for 40, which I wanted to talk about and promote. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Ralph Anthony.
Hey, what's up, Greek goddess of comedy?
We have no applause button. We have no staff. We have nothing. So let me just do it myself because I do everything here myself. Thank you for making this happen. I know you're busy. You got a lot going on. And just if you're watching this on YouTube, Ralph was worried about his appearance. And as you can see, it's pristine, so no worries. So I adore you. You've always been just so you're just nice. You're like normal. You're not. Sometimes some comics are a little weird, and it's like hard to have a conversation with them. And it's a few. No, I'm not saying the majority. I'm just saying, it's just that like quirky. I mean, we're all quirky in our own way, and we all got our weird things in our own way because who the hell would do this unless you're not a little bit off kilter? But we're normal. But I'm a normal person. You're a normal person. So I always like talking to you, and you're just very friendly and you're very warm, and I've seen you on stage and I've seen you grow a bit, and I love the hustle. So this profession is all about stage time, and even Jerry Seinfeld still goes to Gotham and gets on stage. Like, it never ends until you end the career. So I appreciate your hustle. I know you're driving around a lot. So we got to spend some time in a couple of car rides. Yes. And you are originally from upstate New York, correct?
Yeah. Born and raised Ulster County. So the town I grew up in was it's a little town called Highland. Mm-hmm. It's so tiny that when I graduated high school, there was, I think, 115 people in my graduating class.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, okay. So small. It might as well have been a fucking schoolhouse.
But interesting enough, like what, 50, 60 miles from Manhattan?
I'd say about 60 miles.
So, let's just say 70 for argument's sake. So not that far, but a completely different environment. Like, you could be in Kentucky, perhaps. Like, this is what people don't understand. That, when they go, oh, the city, or you look, and I'm like, yes. And then, Westchester, some of the surrounding Long Island, I wouldn't call the country, even though I know there's horse farms and stuff out in the Hamptons, but it's still like Long Island. But you could just, you go over that sort of like 50-mile radius and you are in very different territory.
Yeah, honestly, it's wild. It's wild. When I was younger and like I was in college and I go on spring break and I would tell people I was from New York, they'd be like, "Oh, the city." Mm-hmm. And I got tired of having to explain where I was from. So I would just tell them, "Yeah, no, the city."
Right.
And so I would just make up random shit. And I told one girl one time, I was like, "Yeah, I live on 189th," and she was like, "No, you don't." And I was like, "Fuck, does she know New York?" She goes, no, streets don't go that high. I was like, you have no idea.
You must have said 289 because there is a 189. There's
Well,
189. But you must have said
yeah,
something crazy, right?
yeah. They have no idea. And that's the thing. People don't realize how big New York is. Like New York City has half the population of like the entire state. So it's like once you get out past like the Bronx, it's a whole nother world. Like Westchester, Yonkers, that's upstate New York. And where I grew up, so Highland is right next to another little town called New Paltz. And so it's a very special place. I mean, you have the Mohawk Mountains, Lake Minnewaska. Like I remember just being in high school and in college and now being an adult, just like going up and hiking and, smoking a little of the devil's lettuce, little doobies up in the mountains. And it was great. It was so
well. Now you don't have to worry because in New York City, everything smells like the devil's lettuce. So you can just walk out and get, some almond milk and have just about the same experience, or at least you'll feel the same effect afterwards.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's so nuts.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of it that I've got to smoke. I don't smoke pot. I don't care if anybody does, whatever. I just think it's egregious that kids are walking through. I mean, I realize nobody gives a shit about the adults, but little kids, parents are strolling their kids through clouds of pot smoke. And if you think there's like all of a sudden the smoke just stops and nobody is like smelling it or inhaling it, or it's getting into their body, then you don't know anything about the body. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. It's a big pet peeve of mine, which has nothing to do with, obviously, nobody should go to jail for, a half a pound or whatever the measurement is. You know what I'm saying? Like I get, that, and that's always the argument. And I'm like, okay, of course not. But now we've gone to the other, end of the spectrum. So as everything else, in life. But so I wanted to ask you, what made you move to New York City? Like, how was that? When did that happen? And like, what, how'd that feel?
Yeah. So it was pretty wild. It happened very quickly, and I mean, like within 6 months. Like I had tried doing stand-up at a show in Albany, and this was August of 2011. I had stopped drinking at that point because I had blacked out for a whole 4th of July weekend, and somebody told me during my blackout while we were waiting for an after hours spot to open back up, I just was out in this like back room with probably 15, 20 of my friends. And I just started ripping on them, just like ripping on them, telling jokes, telling stories. And I went on for like, I don't even know, probably like 10 or 15 minutes. And it was that's just how I always was. I always told stories. I loved to make people laugh. And so the next day I showed up for lunch, and my friend Laura was like, you were really funny last night. Never the best way for me to walk in seeing somebody, because it usually would go with, yeah, you were really funny last night. Like, yeah, we had to cut you off, or yeah, somebody tried to fight you, or yeah, that girl wanted to slap you in the face, or whatever it was. That's how it always would go. And I was like, oh fuck, what happened? She goes, no, nothing happened. You just made us laugh. Literally just doubled over. Like you should do comedy. Have you ever thought about doing stand-up? And the seed, that little mustard seed got planted. And so I sat on it for like 6 weeks, and I was always a big fan of Carlin, watched all of his specials. And the best thing I ever heard from him was find what drives you nuts and make it funny. And so I just started writing about how I don't get white people. I really don't. And it turned out to be one of my favorite jokes to this day to still do. I mean, I have inside knowledge. And so I went to this show, and the guy that was running it was like this miniature version of Michael Clark Duncan from the Green Mile.
I know.
So this was...
Is that possible?
Yeah. So this was like the first time I ever got up was basically an all black room. Never doing stand up, never running any of this material in a live setting. Like I had no idea how well or how bad it was going to go. And he gave me 4 minutes. And that 4 minutes changed my life.
Actually, Laura changed your life.
Laura changed my life. Yeah. By planting that seed to tell me to do it.
Do you still speak to Laura?
No, our crew up in Albany, everybody kind of just dispersed. Our buddy sold these 3 bars that were all kind of next to each other across the street. So once he did that, everybody kind of started to move away. Like some people moved down south, some people moved out west. And last time I heard, I don't know, she was out in Colorado doing something. But yeah, I have to credit her. That's no one's ever said that, and I've never thought about it like that, but that's true. She was the one who pushed that first domino.
I'll just tell you my very quick story, and that's why I have a Laura. It's different set of circumstance. Years ago, and I was still working on Wall Street, I was taking acting classes, and there was an acting teacher. Her name is Penny Templeton. Which she's still around. We're on Facebook. As a matter of fact, I have to interview her because she was one of the most instrumental people in my life. And before we would start class as a warm-up, we would improv something from our life. And at the time, one of my sisters was getting married. And as you know, I'm Greek. And it was like drama every weekend. And it was just like, but I'm not getting married. Like, why am I sucked in to this vortex of Yanula, the hairdresser didn't get invited. The whole thing every weekend. So I would come in, I was all pent up and she said to me, I have 2 notes for you. You should write a 1-woman show about your sister's wedding, Greek wedding. And I'm like, this is before the movie. The movie came out a couple of years later, and I'm like, oh, who's going to want to see that, And because I have foresight. And then the second thing she said to me was, I hope you talk about this in your stand-up. And I go, I don't do stand-up. And she said, get some. And I'll never forget. And I got in the cab that night, and I went home, and I was just my head. And at that time, a lot of stand-ups had shows, Seinfeld and Ray Romano and Roseanne and Ellen and and I'm like, oh, maybe that's a way for me to get a sitcom, because that was my goal, to be on a sitcom, because I grew up watching sitcoms. I love sitcoms, the old sitcoms. I can't relate to many of them now, but. And anyway, and then when I went backstage, I saw the comic strip had class with D.F. Sweetler, who is still there, who looks exactly the same. And a few months ago, I had been on a show with him, and I had posted that. I took a picture of us, and I'm like, blah, blah, really came full circle and stuff like that. DF actually gave a lot of great advice. And it was wound up just being almost him and I. There was another girl that came a few times. So it was almost like I got private lessons. But anyway, my whole point of the story is I have a Laura also in my life. And if Penny didn't say that, that is not anything that was in my head or purview or, interest or anything. So it's so interesting how any person, a random person, can say something to you to really change your life. And it's cool. It's cool when that happens. I don't think it happens a ton of times over a lifetime, but I think it happens, a few times where it makes an impact.
Yeah. It's so true, because you never know who you're going to meet on this journey. You never know who's going to affect you or who you're going to affect based on what someone else told you. And as you're telling me the story, you ever read this book by Mitch Albom called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven?
I did it. I know about it, but I never did.
It's such a magical. Have a box of tissues. I cried every time I read it. I'm not even kidding you, not trying to play up bonus points at all. It's so heartfelt and so touching, but it's so true because of that one conversation. Think about all the shows you've done over your career, how many people you've touched, how many people were like, you know what? I did a show. This was 2 months ago, and I was in the shit. I was knee deep in my shit. And I met this couple, and the husband had been out of detox for 9 days. This was the first outing that they had gone to where they were going to be in public around alcohol. He wasn't drinking. And when I got on stage and just started ripping, like going into drug stuff, going into my drinking, and she looked at him, and this is what she told me. She was like, I looked at him and I was like, I know we made the right choice tonight. And then we hung out, and because I don't really drink, every once in a while, special occasion, we went, I got stoned, and like we went to the arcade and like played fucking skee ball and basketball. Like, who does this? It was myself, the headliner, and this couple. And but it's so true, like how you affect these people. And so Laura had pushed me to do it, or suggested it, I should say. I went, Tony gave me this opportunity, all black room, first time, 4 minutes, and I just fucking, I killed it. I killed it. Like, I know it's my first time, but when other people are watching you being like, was this your first time? You know you're on to something. And stand-up's the only thing, Ellen, that I've ever done where it was like the first time I did it, I said to myself, this is what you should be doing with the rest of your life. Like, this is that aha moment where you're like, I will do this no matter what. Like, I don't care what obstacle comes in front of me. I don't care what I got to face. I don't care what's going on. This will always be a part of my life.
So how did you get down to New York City? And then I want to go back to that point.
Yeah.
How did you get to
so
New York
I've been, teeter-tottering up in Albany. It's obviously not known for its comedy scene. Now it's like a little bit better, I guess, but I was struggling. And I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I knew I had to get to New York. And it was either let me back that up. I knew I had to get to some major city. And I was like, well, I've been to New York. I don't know. Maybe it's too much. Maybe it'll be overwhelming. I don't know if I'll be able to cut it. And so I was originally going to go to Chicago. I was going to move to Chicago. Literally, this was August. I was ready to put in a transfer at my day job in October. Like end of October, going into November. And I talked to my dad, and it was like one of those conversations where when you talk to your parents, they want to guide you along, but they also like kind of like weave in their own like little insecurities.
Yeah.
And my dad is very much, he's very, not that you shouldn't be close to your family, but my dad was very much a family man with the extended family. He is the patriarch of our family, of the extended family. And he had said to me, he goes, well, God forbid if something happens, now you're a plane ride away instead of a car ride away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up as an only child, and I was like, well, if something happens to me, given how the last 12 years of my life have been, I know I'll be okay. I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But if something happened to them, I know that I have to be there. Mm-hmm. So I didn't move to Chicago, and I sat on it. And then 3 months later, this opportunity opened up with my company in Brooklyn. And so I was like, I put my transfer in, I put my salary requirements, and little negotiations. We met in the middle, and I was gone. And I came down the weekend before. This is wild. All right. So the weekend before I came down to New York to just to see what comedy was like, and it shows you how naive I was at that time. I took the train into Grand Central and then took cabs all over New York. I took a cab from Grand Central to the Lower East Side, then up to Union Square, then up to the Upper West Side. Oh my God, I probably spent more money in cabs in that one day than I have in the last 10 years in New York. But I had a gut feeling. And so before that weekend, before I left, I got this tattoo, and it's an ace. And I always have been a believer that no matter what happens to me or what has happened to me in my life, I always have an ace up my sleeve. Like, I might not realize it right away, and it might take me some time. Like right now, like I just found it, but I'm always going to get through it. There's always something that's going to come along, whether it's within me or outside of me, that's going to be like, we're making it through this. You got this. And
you're a survivor. And you've had, I'm assuming past experiences to get you there, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It sounds schmaltzy, but it's true. It's true. Yeah. And then you're faced with something and you're like, well, this is nothing because I had that thing happen to me. So you just get that's a good mindset. And it's also a good mindset for this business of comedy, because there is no playbook. And I remember in my early beginnings going out, I worked during the day, like you go out at night. And there was a restaurant on 46th Street. Oh God, the name escapes me. I don't know. It's not Frankie and Johnny's. It was something else. If I heard it, I would remember. And a guy by the name of Bill Michaels ran the comedy part, not the restaurant part. And Bill at that time, when I came in, was doing he did a lot of produced shows. So I did a lot of shows from him. Bill's a character. I don't know if you've ever met him before. He's a very interesting guy. He's a very nice guy, like quirky in his own way, but a very nice guy. And I got a lot of stage time from him, even though I brought people or whatever. That was part of the deal. But he was good. He was good. And he had a lot of shows and he put me on, right? Because there's a lot of other people that can bring people, right? Anyway, and Paul Mercurio came in. He would come in. Actually, there was a lot of comics that I met there at that time, and then that was the only place I barked, and I really stood outside the door. Like I didn't go down in the middle of Times Square or anything. I really just stood outside and that kind of thing. Anyway, I remember Paul Mercurio coming in, and we got to talking one day, and he was a lawyer, and I think he worked for one of the investment banks. Also, I'm going to say Solomon Brothers, but I'm not really sure if that's what it was. Anyway, and I remember him telling me, and again, like one of these people that, they say something to you and it's really either pertinent, something that you could really take with you, a good piece of information. And he said, you and I come from the corporate world, and there's a trajectory. You're junior staff, you're a senior, you're a vice president, you're this or that. And, you get promoted as you go along, as you do well, and based on merit. He goes, this isn't like that at all. There's no human resources. There's nobody to talk to. There's no, oh, it's going to take me 5 years to get here. He goes, it's all, and he said, for people like us, it's hard because that's what we know works better. But I hear you. And this, we chose it. Again, another comic who passed away. His name is Monty Hoffman. One day I was on Long Island. I was complaining. And he was very gruff. And he goes, nobody puts a gun to your head to do this. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And it's like, it's true. No, it's true. It's certainly not because I had to feed my family, because, the money part is really fucked up. So it really is a choice, and the talent, work hard. I want to talk to you too about like the whole thing with the road, but and just a lot of stage time and just really paying your dues, but like constantly working at it. And I've been now doing this for over 20 years, and so for me and for my peers and the people that are even before me, I mean, there's all these new crops of comics, coming up. And of course, I'm not going to like run to Brooklyn and at midnight and do a show. I did do that, but I don't do that anymore. And it was more Manhattan. The Brooklyn scene came a bunch of years ago. Like I was already sort of, I want to say past it, but but so that, so that really matters. How are you? So in navigating, all of this, like, what do you think, what has been the biggest challenges for you? because you seem to be working, getting booked. I realize Facebook working, and and sometimes I'm not saying you're lying, but like sort of like the reality working, or with us, we want to do it every night. So just because you see something that we're doing on the weekend, it's like, well, that, or a couple times a month, it's like, well, that's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing, and I think this goes with anything, and it's a very hard lesson to learn. And I think there's only one way that you learn it, and that's when you get smacked in the face by life, but it's setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way that this is going to work, because you have to have balance in your life. Like, if you don't experience life, what are you going to talk about?
Right.
If it's just stand up 24/7, like 7 days a week, no.
Right.
And when you first start, that's what you think you need to be. I remember running around New York, 5 years ago, doing 4, 5, 6, 7 open mics, hanging out at shows, being there every day of the week. And it was fun until it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because you realize, what kind of quality do you have? And most comics, when you're younger and you're newer, you're single, so you don't have anything. You're just out. Your family becomes your comedy people become your family, and so as you get older, you got to realize that longevity of this is based on boundaries. It's based on balance, because you're going to get burned out. And that's the one bit of advice. That's the one thing that I think would keep everything grounded. And I know for myself, I went from that hustler mentality before COVID, running around all the time, to then basically taking that same mindset and doing it on Zoom for a year and a half. And then seeing where New York comedy started to shake out once everything opened up. And you try to go in with that mentality of, I'm going to go out. I'm going to be out 5 days a week, 6 days a week. But at that point, I had a family, like I had been with somebody that had a kid, and like that was my life had taken this very beautiful turn.
Mm-hmm.
And so now these are my experiences talking about, fatherhood and being in a relationship, and talking about, marriage and settling down, and all these other beautiful things that I never thought were possible, because I had no balance. I had no life outside of comedy. I basically I would rarely see friends outside of comedy. I'd rarely see my family. It was running shows. And so I think that's the perspective that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Just having the balance, having the boundaries. I think that was what you had asked me. I feel like that's what it was, or like the bit of advice.
I told you that we just we just go where the road, right. We just go where the road takes us. So you've talked about having your drug and alcohol challenges. You talk about it at work. I'm sorry, it is at work. At comedy, on your act.
Yeah.
Most of the time we are around alcohol, because that's just part of it. So how have you found that? Is it a struggle, or is it just like you're so past that it's fine?
Yeah. Honestly, I am so past it, and I say this with the utmost humility, and not even like trying to brag. I don't know many people that did it harder or better than I did, that are comics. I don't know. And this is not, I say that, and I never want it to turn into a pissing match, because I know how people can get, but it's like, all my friends were bartenders. I lived in Albany for throughout all my 20s. Albany is a college town. It was a party 7 days a week. There were days where I had to force myself to not drink or to do drugs, just so I could give my body a chance to recoup for like a day or two. My weekends would start like Wednesday, maybe even Tuesday, and I would take Mondays off if it wasn't football season. I had no problem. I could put down a half a bottle of Jameson by myself. when in my heyday, half a bottle. I could put down a mag of wine. Not a
So
problem.
did you go through a program at all, or did you just try to do this?
No, for the drinking, COVID actually helped with the drinking. Because when you drink alone, you're like, this is now a problem. Before it was like, quote unquote, socially acceptable because I was out with my friends and I'd come home for a nightcap. But when your nightcap is the entire night when you're home alone because there's nothing going on, then it's a problem. So that was very easy for me to do that. With Coke, I overdosed twice. And I overdosed twice by myself.
Oh, God.
And at that point, both times, I had enough drugs in my apartment to put me in jail. And I was like, I can't have this. I can't have this. And back then, you're talking, this is like 15, 13 years ago, something like that. It was like around, 2023? So yeah, I'm coming up on like 13, 14 years ago. Because the overdoses were a little bit spread out. They were a little bit spread out, but back then, like, I don't know how it is now. I feel like people are way more accepting, but I knew that I was overdosing. Like, I knew something was terribly fucking wrong with me. Like, but I knew I couldn't call 911. So, like, if I call 911 and I tell them that I overdosed, they're going to call the cops because drugs are involved. Now, if the cops come and drugs are involved, now they're going to search the apartment. Now, if they search the apartment, then they find the drugs and they're like, oh, fuck, well, here we go. Here, let's put on the bracelets and they'll handcuff me to the gurney. I couldn't have it. So what I did was there was one moment where I felt like my skin was on fire. It felt literally like if you look at somebody, like if you're watching a movie or a TV show and you watch that somebody's on fire, like, and you see the flames and the blue flames on the skin, that's what my skin felt like all across my body. And so I stripped down and I got in the shower and I turned on cold water and I'm just sitting there rocking back and forth. And then I start crying because I was like, I'm going to fucking die. I am going to fucking die in this apartment. I can't have this. And so I just sat in there with the cold water for like an hour until I kind of just like calm myself down. And I just found out recently, within like weeks, because I was going through my own separate shit recently, that rocking is actually a very innate way for the body to calm itself down naturally. So if like you're ever stressed out and you feel like you're going to lose it, you sit on the floor, you lie on your back, and you just gently rock yourself back and forth. That's why if you see somebody, if they're on a Zoom call and they're getting nervous and they start rocking, their body is trying to calm them down naturally.
Oh, interesting.
Which is very fascinating.
When grandma had you in the rocking chair, right?
Exactly.
So was that the second time that this episode?
No,
that was
the first time.
There was another time after that.
Very similar time, minus the shower.
So this blows my mind. Excuse the pun. Because it's I think I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is your experience, but I think it's almost like you don't know what you're doing. I mean, you're doing it, but you don't know what you're doing. You just headed down this road to numb whatever it is that's going on. And I'm so grateful that you've come, you're in it, you're in life, and that it could have you could have been I'll be just blunt, you could have just been in a graveyard upstate. I mean, that like you really got a lot, you got some chances and then you cleaned yourself up, and so you cleaned yourself up though on your own, or did you went? Oh, yeah. You didn't go to like a priest or like I don't know anybody.
No, and I'll tell you what, that's the funny thing. So the second time, the first time it happened, both times, and the first time fucked me up. First time fucked me up because I never had this before. I went to bed. I finally calmed myself down. I ate like 2 granola bars because I hadn't eaten in like 18 hours. All it was just booze and alcohol, booze and Coke. And so I ate these granola bars. I got into bed, and when I closed my eyes to think I could go to sleep, all I saw was white. That was it. And it was like, fuck, is this the white light? Like, is this scary? So I have, well, they're all wrapped up on my thing, but I have these rosary beads. In fact, I have them tattooed around my body, like around my neck and down. I got these rosary beads in my hand, and I prayed to God. I was like, if you make it, if you let me wake up tomorrow, I promise you, I will be better. I will be better. And the special part about those beads is they weren't given to me. I found them in an apartment 4 years prior. After stopping someone, there was an attempted robbery. And I say attempted because when he robbed all my housemates upstairs, robbed all my roommates. And when he got to my room, it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up to him standing with my laptop in the bedroom. I was dead asleep, woke up. I thought I was dreaming. And then when he went to move, I knew it was real. And we fought in the apartment. And then we went outside. He put me through my glass door. I tackled him off the porch. I split my shoulder in half. I fought him barefoot in the street till the cops came.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, it was insane. It was so insane. And so after they arrested him, they took him to jail. They took me to the hospital because they had to reset my shoulder. Like my arm, I had ripped everything out. There was nothing, like literally, Ellen, my arm was just hanging limply. Like if you tugged on it, the only thing that was holding it in place was the skin, was my skin. That was it. There was nothing there anymore. That's how hard I hit this kid. It's so insane. And so when I left the hospital the next day, I went back and I'm trying to like straighten up the room because obviously the apartment was torn the fuck apart. I found these beads and I was like, oh, that's my good luck charm. That was God. And so anytime I've gone through something major, I've just gravitated back to God. And so the beads from the break-in, the beads for the overdose. And the second time it happened, I was like, you gotta fucking go to church. And so my thing was, I lived 2 blocks from the College of St. Rose. That's where I was going at the time. And they had Wednesday night mass. So I told my boss, I was like, hey, listen, I'm going through some shit. Can't tell you about it. I don't really feel comfortable. But I need to leave work at 4 o'clock every Wednesday. And I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this for, but I have to go 4 o'clock. And it just so happened that the first day that I went to church was Ash Wednesday. So Ash Wednesday has always been very special to me.
Rise from the ashes, right?
Rise from beauty for the ashes. And so I did that. And then I was pretty much clean. And I got to the point where I didn't do it for a long time. And then I would start doing it in dribs and drabs. Because as an addict, you always, unless you have good willpower, you always go back. And then on my 34th birthday, my buddies came. I went up to Albany and we went out, and it was just like this reunion it was just such an amazing night. And so obviously the drugs came out and I was, Captain Toots a lot, fucking snort and sniff over here. And I woke up the next day and I felt like a bag of beaten assholes. And that was it. I woke up that day. The first day, November 29th, 2015. That was it. I was done. And I have not touched it since.
Well, I'm blown away, blown away. I keep saying that word, by your story. And I've never had addiction like that. Not that I didn't do stupid stuff, but I never went to that place. And it's just the fact that you were so close to death a few times, more than a few times, and to come back. And I mean, I will say this, to me, like, you're never going back there, because you're so way past that, and you've had so many other things, and you're grateful for what you have, and probably one of the things that I think now all of a sudden I'm psychoanalyzing you, but doing stand-up comedy, as hard as it is, and it is so hard, and you don't know that until you're in it, is about sort of spreading that cheer and making people laugh. And like you said, you always wanted to make people laugh, and just entertaining. And then, you do tell some of your story on stage. You say it in a stand-up way. And when I heard you, and when I hear you, I always feel like you partially do that as a message. And it's like to help people, even though you do it, you try to do it comedically, and I know you're self-deprecating and all that other kind of stuff. So it's fascinating, and I'm proud of you for, and you should be proud of you, more importantly, that you're where you are. And I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, it's amazing. And at the end of the day, drugs, God, it just ruins everything. It just does. It just does. It's like, it never ends well if you don't, get a hold of it at some point. And sometimes you're past the point, and then, and then you can't get a hold of it. You're not here anymore. So it's I don't know, but it's here, and you have to fight it. And it's also like the personality, I mean, I think we all have some addiction to something, right? Because when you talk about addiction, you think of that, but that, like, there's this bazillion addictions. Social media is an addiction. I check it way too much. The whole phone thing, it's I'm about to throw it in the river. It's like, I can't stand it. I used to read books. Like, I don't read books anymore. I don't get the newspaper delivered. I don't, it's like, I don't go to the museum. I don't like, there's so many things, because I think that if I Google something, that's a way of learning. And my brain is like frying from it. I mean, it's just, so there's just so many, there's so many, there's so many other things that also are not good for you, that are compulsive behaviors.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I don't trust people that don't have vices. So
right, yeah, that's true. And I love, sweets. That's another issue. So so all right, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about what's been going on. Let's talk about your album, where you recorded that, where could people find it, the title 40 for 40, what does that mean exactly, all of that.
Mm-hmm. So you can find it right now. It's streaming on Apple Music. And if you want to help me make rent, you can buy it. It's only $10. I guarantee you it's $10. $10. Think about what nonsense we buy for $10. We're like, oh, it's only $10, whatever, who gives a fuck. Buy the album.
Not even 2 lattes. Not even 2 lattes.
Not even. Yeah. It's one Frappuccino from Starbucks, and it will give you more enjoyment than that fucking Frappuccino, and you'll burn calories because you're going to be laughing because it's funny as fuck.
Good point.
Yes. So it's right now, it's on Apple Music. But it's going to be coming out. It's supposed to be dropping. I don't know what's going on. And that's the worst thing as a comic, when you put something out there, you're like, I don't know what's going on with this. It's supposed to be dropping on Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, and a whole bunch of other streaming services within the next 2 weeks. Because it'll have been out for almost a month in 5 days. So 5 days, 5 days from now, it'll be out for a month.
So where did you record it?
I recorded it at Laugh It Up in Poughkeepsie. Shout out to Cal Getter. Those guys, they're amazing. It was such a fun club, such a fun night. They are more than accommodating. If you're a comic and you are trying to put in work and you think you got something, reach out to them.
I'll reach out to them. Okay.
You should. There's no reason why you shouldn't. There's no reason why you shouldn't, because honestly, I was just gonna be like, honestly, because there's a Greek church literally like 3 blocks away.
I've talked, yeah, Father Jason, I've actually talked to them. Yeah.
Okay.
But I would rather go to the club than have to email the priest 77 times.
Oh yeah, no, I'll give you Cal's info. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's not a problem. Oh my god, it's the least I could do. But great club. It's basically it's my hometown club. And the cool part was they've never seen me do anything outside of hosting. So like when I host, it's always a lot of crowd work, a little bit of jokes, mostly crowd work, because that's when you're the host, you just want to get people involved, you want to get them laughing, you want to get them live, and then you end on like a few jokes to get them in the mindset of like, hey, this is a comedy show. So yeah, so that's what I did, and nothing is better than when you get off stage and you kill for 45 to 60 minutes and they're like, damn, I didn't know you could do that. Like, wow, you blew me away. And you're like, yeah, man, that's it. And I think that's all comics ask for. That's all we fucking want. And that's what was so special about the comic strip. And that was so special about Richie, God rest his soul, was the fact that he gave you a chance. He gave you a shot. That's all we want. That's all I ever asked. Just give me a fucking shot. Give me 5 minutes. Let me show you what I can do. And they gave me that night. And so it was a very special night for me because it was 11/11. Now, it might not seem much to a lot of people, but 11/11, and I have to give this up to my ex. She put me onto these angel numbers, and it was very special. It was just very special. We had started talking on 9/9. Our first date was on 10/10. We became official on 12/12. So it was only natural that 11/11 would work. And that was the last night that we were together as out and about as a couple. And so it was truly something magical. It was so special for me, just how everything lined up. No, granted, I didn't know that was going to be the last time we were together. However, it still doesn't disregard the fact of like 11/11 is a very special date for me. And so leading up to it, she was actually the one who pushed me to do the album, because as comics, no matter how funny we are on stage, there's always sometimes, not always, but sometimes there's like this little voice in the back of our head that's like, you're not good enough to do that. Nah, you can't get that opportunity.
Little voice. It's like in a megaphone every morning.
Yeah. And so at that point, this came up in the beginning of the summer of like this past summer, 2022. And at that point, I had been on the road already for 3 months, going on 4 months, 3-4 months. And I'd already been headlining, and I'd been headlining like a handful of clubs from New York down south to Florida. And it was something, it was really something special, because like I was having fun. I knew the material was funny, and I was just unsure if I could do it. And she was always my voice of reason. She was always my voice of reason. She was my best friend. And that when you talk to your best friend, you're like, I don't know what to do. And they give you those real conversations. And so she was the one. I owe her. I know I was the one who put in the work. I know that I was the one who was on the road. I know I was the one who wrote the jokes. But I give her total credit for it, because she was the one who pushed me forward.
Well, that's very nice of you to make that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
I do want anybody, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, that Ralph is now out in the wild, roaming around. So if anybody wants to reach out to him on social media, please do. So, but we thank Ralph's former girlfriend for coming into his life and helping him through that. But But now we are moving on, and
Yeah.
and you're in a different place. So
Wild, yeah.
I want people to check you out, 40 for 40, and that was because you are.
Yeah. So when
Say that? Can I say that?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I recorded the album, I was 40 years old, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, well, people don't have attention spans anymore. So let's
Right.
do 40 minutes. And I ended up giving you 47 minutes.
That's
40
perfect.
47 minutes of the
And
business.
people do not have attention spans, and that is couldn't be a truer statement. So what's the game plan? You're obviously going to just continue to, you do a lot of road work. You're always in your car, like always. It feels
Yeah.
like you're always someplace.
Yeah.
And people always like, oh, what club do you do? I go, I do the comic strip once in a while, and that's it. Everything else is out of the city. That's not,
Yeah.
although it's funny, tonight I actually do have something in the city, but and it, for me, it's not clubs. I mean, it's once in a while, but not not necessarily. So we go. I know you do a lot of private stuff. I do a lot of private stuff.
Yeah.
And we just do it. We just do it. We just bring our act. We tailor it to the audience, or at least I do. And it's a hustle. I always say the hardest part about this is getting work. It's not the stage, because we enjoy that and we do that, and we it's such a luxury to be able to sit down and go over your set and write and massage and take this out and put this in and try this out and all that. But most of the time is, at least for me, is like looking for the work and, the follow up and the blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh my God, I just want someone to do this for me, but that's not happening.
Yeah. No, it's very funny. In the last few months, I've stopped trying to kill myself to book things. And it's like, I'll reach out, I'll do my due diligence, but I'm not going to let it consume me. And I'm actually getting more, I'm having opportunities just come to me.
Nice.
And I really believe it's because of just like all the meditation, the praying. I got right with God right before the end of the year, like legit got right with God. And it's all because of that. It's all because of them. Mm-hmm. It's not me. You could be there, but once you get that positive vibe, it starts to circulate and it starts to encapsulate you. And then it grows bigger and stronger. And I feel like that's how it is. It all starts up here. It all starts in your brain. That's why, honestly, that's why I got this new tattoo, because I don't know if you could see it.
I can. Yeah, I can see a lot of them.
Yeah, it's a brain and a heart and an hourglass. So it's like whatever you think you feel, and whatever feel you think. So it all starts up here. This is all connected.
You wear your tattoos well. I am not a tattoo person. Part of the reason is that from the time I was young, my parents said many things to me that I should never do. Get pregnant, and do drugs, and the other thing was a tattoo. They were anti-tattoo. Yeah. And in Greek religion, technically, although I'm sure it doesn't have any more, I think Catholics too, like if you have a tattoo, you can't get buried. So because we're always obsessed with death. So, but anyway, they drilled it into me. And again, I don't, I don't want one for myself. I mean, you could do whatever you want, and yours obviously have a purpose. I do have a little bit of like, when I see, especially a woman, and I don't care how this fucking sounds, but when I see like these sleeves and this, and like, I see these pretty girls, and I'm just like, why, my opinion. So anyway, but you're wearing them well. And if you ever want to come to the Greek church, we'll be more than happy to have you. So anyway, everybody, I want you to check out Ralph's new special, 40 for 40. Just Google it. It'll pop up. Give us your social media, your website, and all that other good stuff.
Social media and the website, literally one and the same. Social media is right down there at Ralph the Mouth 81, Instagram and Twitter. Please follow me, because a lot of these clubs, a lot of these places, they base their bookings on a comic social media. Yep. So please follow me. TikTok is just Ralph the Mouth, and my website is ralphthemouth.com.
Okay, great. Well, I thank you so much. You are the best. I hope we get to work with each other.
June. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop this and then I'll tell you about that. Everybody, I'm Ellen Karis. Follow me Twitter, Instagram at Greek Chick Comic. Ellen Karis, the Greek goddess of comedy. This is Sweet and Salty with Ellen Karis. We've been doing this for 9 seasons. Go to my website, ellenkaris.com. We've got great guests like Ralph and so many others, lots of comics. We even had a priest come on. We had marriage counselors. We had a couple that were swingers, and I didn't know at the time. So we got a variety of people. So thanks, everybody. Until next time. Bye.